Welcome to Deck Analysis and Testing. Today we're looking at Witchcrafter. Witchcrafter is a control deck with tons of graveyard effects designed to gain advantage. It was pretty good on release, but after Holiday got semied and Grass got banned, the deck became a lot less explosive. Until now, not only did they unlimit Holiday, they gave the deck new support. They still lose the exact same things as before, flipping Veer face down can still win you the game occasionally, but the deck is now a lot more consistent, has a much stronger advantage loop, and a second boss monster to end on. Most Witchcrafter monsters have two effects. One allows them to tribute themselves and send a spell from your hand to summon a Witchcrafter from your deck as a quick effect, plus a graveyard effect that banishes themselves to do something. The spells also have two effects, one unique effect plus one common effect that gets them back to your hand during your own end phase. These effects are shared once per turn, so if you activate their first effect, they're gonna stay in your graveyard. Because basically every Witchcrafter monster and spell has a graveyard effect, blind milling is really good in this deck, so you'll see cards that do that, like Volcanic Wall, which is free to obtain, and the Lightsworn Engine, which is in the expensive version. Another interesting tech is Spell Chronicle. This free to obtain card lets you banish 5 spells from your deck at the low cost of discarding your entire hand. This looks really bad, but by using any of your Witchcrafter monsters to summon Shmieta from your deck, use its effect to tribute itself, use its graveyard effect to summon Patronus, which is our trap, and even though it can't use its graveyard effect during the turn it's sent, you can use it during your opponent's turn, so you can use its graveyard effect and return all 5 of your Witchcrafter spells from your banished pile that you banished with Spell Chronicle and just add them all back to your hand. And in case you're wondering, a +5 is really good. It's gimmicky, it loses to MST going second, but it's funny, so we're playing it. Let's have a look at the monsters. We won't go over the common effects that allow them to quick effect tribute themselves, so we'll go through them a bit quicker. First is 2 boss monsters. One of them is the old one, Madame Veer, has 2 effects. One effect allows, during calculate damage calc, if your spellcaster monster battles an opponent's monster, you can reveal any number of spells with different names in your hand, and for each one revealed, that monster gains 1,000 attack and defense, and it gets the attack boost until the end of the turn. So if you use something like a collaboration that allows you to attack 2 times, both attacks will have the attack boost, which is pretty good. And also, you can, as a quick effect, discard a spell to negate all effects of monsters on your opponent's field until the end of the turn. It doesn't target, so it's really good against some decks like Lunalight that prevent you from targeting their own monsters. Next is our second boss monster, which is the new one, Witchcrafter Hane. Is a level 7 Dark Witchcrafter. Also, it allows your opponent to not target any of your spellcaster monsters except for this one. And also, as a quick effect, you can discard a spell to pop a face-up card your opponent controls. So you have both a monster negate and also a card pop. So it's a pretty good form of disruption to have. For our small monsters, they all share the same effect to during the main phase as a quick effect, tribute themselves plus pitch a spell from your hand to the graveyard to summon another Witchcrafter monster from your deck, except for itself. And also for the graveyard effects, level 4 one can banish itself to send a Witchcrafter card from your deck to your graveyard, and this can send spells that add themselves back in the end phase, or you can send a trap if you activate a Spell Chronicle to just grab 5 from your banished pile. Next is level 3, this allows us to banish itself from the graveyard to draw a card and then send one Witchcrafter card from your hand to the graveyard, or if you have none, you banish your entire hand, which won't happen. Next is the level 2 one, which is one of the new cards. This allows us to, if we don't have any cards in our hand, we can banish this card from the graveyard to add back a Witchcrafter card from your graveyard back to your hand. This is a way to recur advantage, and also if you activated the spell effects, you can't add them back with their own effects because you can only use one of the effects per turn, so you could just add them back using your level 2 instead. And finally, we have 3 copies of the level 1 Witchcrafter, which is free to obtain, so we're playing free. It has the graveyard effect to banish itself plus a Witchcrafter spell in your graveyard, and this effect will become the spell's activated effect. This allows you to use the spell's effect from the graveyard, and allows you to use the effect twice if you activate it from your hand, or if you milled it with something like your Light Swans or a Volcanic Wall, you can immediately use the effect from your graveyard as well. For the spells, we were playing one Volcanic Wall, which we talked about. This basically just lets you send 3 cards from your deck to your graveyard, and even though you can't attack this turn, it won't matter if you activate it during your first turn. For the Witchcrafter spells, we are playing one Creation. This is a new spell that we got from the box. It allows us to search a Witchcrafter monster from the deck, and also has a shared effect with all other Witchcrafter spells that during the end phase it adds itself back to your hand. We have 2 copies of Witchcrafter Collaboration. This allows Witchcrafter monsters to attack twice, and also your opponent can activate spell trap effects when it attacks until the end of the damage step. Next is 3 copies of Holiday. This is probably the best spell aside from the Searcher. It allows us to reborn a Witchcrafter monster from our graveyard. Next is 1 copy of Unveiling. This card allows us to summon a Witchcrafter from our hand, and it is a quick play spell, so you can use it during your opponent's turn, but you rarely use the summon effect. You usually just use it as another Witchcrafter spell that just adds itself back during the end phase. And finally, we have the only Witchcrafter continuous spell. This works a bit differently with the other Witchcrafter spells. It doesn't add itself back to the hand. Instead, it activates itself face up during the end phase. And also, if you use a Witchcrafter monster effect to send a spell from your hand, you can send this card from your field instead. So it works the same way as the other spells. And also it has a very rarely used effect that once per turn, if your spellcaster monster destroys a monster by battle, you draw a card for free. And then we have Spell Chronicle, which I talked about. You discard your entire hand and then banish 5 spells or traps from your deck. You will be banishing all 5 different named Witchcrafter spells, so you can add them back with the trap. Patronus has the effect to target a spellcaster monster that is in your graveyard or banished, return it back to the deck, and then add a Witchcrafter spell from your deck to your hand. And also, if this card is in your graveyard, except the turn it's sent, you can banish this card and then target any number of your banished Witchcrafter spells with different names and add them back to your hand. That is why it is very important that when you activate Spell Chronicle, you banish Witchcrafter spells with different names. So that's why we're playing exactly 5 different named Witchcrafter spells, and we only have 5 anyway, so it's just, yeah. Okay, and then we're playing a copy of Masterpiece. This has the effect that if you control a Witchcrafter, you can target a spell in either graveyard, and then you add a card with the same name from the deck to your hand. And more usefully is the graveyard effect of this card that allows you to banish itself plus any number of Witchcrafter spells from your graveyard, and special summon a Witchcrafter monster from your deck whose level equal the number of spells you banished with this effect. So even if your board gets cleared by your opponent, you still have a way to get back monsters to your field. For the extra deck, it's just links that you probably never summon. For the skill, we're playing Grit because this deck doesn't really need to special summon that much during your own turn because all of your special summon effects are quick effects, so you can afford to just not special summon in your turn and just do the special summoning during your opponent's turn, so you can get around the restrictions quite easily if it does come up. And also, it's just quite nice to just not lose immediately if your Veer gets countered. You still probably will have a chance to make a comeback by using the skill and try to win the game by just grinding out your opponent. Here is the expensive version of the deck. We are playing 3 copies of Mieta because this is probably the best low-level Witchcrafter monster. And we're playing Light Swans because Light Swans are really good at putting cards in the graveyard, and because it mills 3 cards randomly and basically every single Witchcrafter monster and spell wants to be in the graveyard, it doesn't really matter what we mill, we will pretty much always get value from any of the cards that we mill off of our spells. And we're playing a 1 Leela as the search target for our charge of the Light Brigade. this card is also pretty good at getting rid of your opponent's back row before you put your Veer on your field, so you don't get countered immediately. We're also still playing Spell Chronicle because I think this card is funny. And for the extra deck, we're just playing Links. Again, just random Links that you probably won't summon. But for the skill, we're playing something else. We're playing Show of Nightmares. That is because if you play more milling cards, Show of Nightmares will be a better skill than Grit, in my opinion. Because what you can do is, after you mill a whole bunch of cards from your deck to your graveyard, you can just add back one of the spells that you milled with your milling effect. You can add them back to your hand and then return a useless card from your hand back to the deck. And that grabs you a spell for free. And potentially you might even add back another Charge of the Light Brigade, and then in that situation you might want to consider playing another Light Sworn, so you have another target for your second Charge of the Light Brigade to add to your hand. But I think one is probably enough, because you probably won't be activating 2 Charge of the Light Brigade anyway in a single turn. That just isn't very likely, so I'm just gonna play 1. You can play 2 if you want, but yeah. So that's basically it for the deck. So a bit of a funny story about these replays. They're all taken in Legend 4, and as you can see, I am about to lose my rank, but then I won 3 games in a row with Witchcrafters, 2 with the free-to-play version and 1 with the expensive version. And I just got to Legend 5, just by accident. Anyway, we're gonna activate Spell Chronicle, pitching the trap, and banishing 5 Witchcrafter spells from our deck. And then during our opponent's draw phase, we'll banish the trap and just add them all back to our hand. That's just really, really satisfying. We're gonna add all 5 different named Witchcrafter spells to our hand. So when our opponent tries to summon their blue sky, what we can do is we can tribute our own monster to summon a monster in a different column. So instead of searching 2 cards, they're only gonna search a single card because there's only 1 card in the column. Our opponent's gonna set one and create a column with 2 cards. We're gonna tribute the monster again, so he doesn't have a column with 2 cards. And he is forced to set another card before he could continue to combo. He's going to try to activate Purple Nightfall, and this is the most profitable Veer activation ever. We both negate the Purple Nightfall and negate the Magius on field effect, because Veer negates all face-up monster effects until the end of the turn. Our opponent will be ending on a Crusadia Equimax with nothing in its zone. So during our turn, we're going to try to activate some of our own effects. He's going to use his secret to summon a monster in the column of our Veer to negate our Veer, but that's fine. We're going to use the effect of level 2 to get ourselves the Hane, and the Hane is really good in this situation because if we are successful to pop our opponent's secret, we also get to destroy our opponent's monster and reduce the attack of our opponent's Equimax. We're going to do that, popping both the trap and the monster that is equipped to, and because we activated the effect of Collaboration, we can also attack twice, and even though he's going to protect his Link monster by banishing his Arborea from the graveyard, we could just attack again and get rid of that Link monster. And during the end phase, all the spells just go back to the hand, and good luck to our opponent. Our opponent will be summoning a yellow Magnite, which can pop back row, but we could negate that. He's going to make a copy of Reglex, which we can pop, but he will activate the quick play to prevent it from being affected, but that's okay. He's going to try to attack. We're just going to add another spell before we reveal 3 spells in our hand to boost our monster's defense by 3k. Our opponent will take a whole bunch of damage, and during our turn we can just combo off a bit, I guess, just grabbing more spells to our hand, negate his attack boosting effect, reveal 4 spells, and just attack for way over lethal. Okay, in our second game we are still going first, so we could just do our entire combo uninterrupted, which is always nice. Our opponent is playing Blue Eyes, and we do not open with a monster, but if we mill a monster with Volcanic Wall, it will save us. And we do, so we can just use Holiday to revive the monster that we milled, and then use its effect to grab us the level 4, so we can use its effect to summon the Witchcrafter during our opponent's turn. We're gonna add back 2 spells, 1 to our hand and 1 to our field, and pass it back to our opponent. Our opponent will be activating the skill to pitch their blue eyes to the graveyard. They're gonna make an alternative which is able to pop our monster, but we can just activate its quick effect to tag itself out so it doesn't get popped. We're gonna use the scrolls effect, so we don't have to send the spell in our hand, so we can keep it for something like a Veer. Our opponent will activate a field spell and then reborn his copy of Abyss Dragon. We will not negate the Abyss Dragon because it doesn't really do anything, it just gets him a free card, which is fine. He's going to normal summon a Blue Eyes and then make the fusion, and then he's going to use the field spell to gain a bit of effect of attack, and then try to beat over our monster. We're going to grab a spell with our trap, and then reveal 2 to just block his attack. He's going to try to use the effect of the fusion, but before he does that, we could negate his monster effects by pitching a spell, and it negates both the fusion and the Abyss Dragon. And the third and final game will be our rank up match, because we have a 2-win streak, as you can see. All 3 games in this video are recorded in succession. So it's pretty funny how I went from almost losing my Legend 4 rank to getting to Legend 5. Anyway, our opponent is playing Lunar Lights and they are going first, which is great for us. We always like seeing Lunar Lights going first. He is going to just make a board, I guess, but because he's playing Lunar Light, he won't have a lot of back row that disrupts us, which is nice, and also he doesn't seem to be putting out any sort of disruption. He's just gonna make a Cat Dancer and hope that we don't beat over it, I guess. He's gonna add a White Rabbit for next turn, and pass it back to us. Okay, let's see what we can do. We're gonna summon a level 3, pitch a spell, get to level 4, banish a level 3, draw a card, we draw a brick, but that's okay, because we can just use a skill later to shuffle it back to the deck. We're gonna send a spell using the level 4, which we can add back using our skill, and then shuffle back the Lightsworn, and then we're gonna use Holiday to grab another monster so we can end on both of our boss monsters during our opponent's turn. We're gonna pop his Fusion, which cannot be destroyed by battle, but we could pop it with card effects. And then during the end phase, we just grab back all of our spells, but we can't grab back the Holiday because we used the first effect this turn. He's gonna use White Rabbit, which is fine, and then he's gonna use Wolf, which is not fine. We're gonna pop it when he tries to activate the Fusion Summon effect, which also stops him from resolving. And then after he grabs back the copy of Yellow Marten, we will make a Veer, so if he makes an Xyz monster, we can just negate the Xyz monster, but he doesn't. He just ends on 2 level 4s, which is fine for me. We're gonna activate Spell Chronicle that we drew, and then we're gonna use Creation to add a Shmieta to our hand, so if it gets to the graveyard, we can send the Patronus to use its graveyard effect to add back all the spells that we banished with Spell Chronicle, but that never happens because we are already winning anyway. So we're gonna add back the spells from our graveyard, except for the spell that we activated, and pass it back to our opponent. Our opponent will be activating their White Rabbit, which we will negate. He will activate Lunar Light Resurgence, which is fine. He's gonna activate Yellow Marten, which we can prevent from coming back using the effect of Hain to pop the card that he targeted, and then we can just attack for a game. And we get to Legend 5. Nice.